Hi there, and welcome to today's webinar on redefining skills and recruitment in the age of AI. I'm Rainey Gill, Vice President of Marketing at eFinancialCareers, and I'm delighted to be speaking with Jeremy and Seth from Thakral One. We know the increasing importance of AI in terms of just the end-to-end recruitment process, including shaping skills. So we're really pleased to be able to give you some insight on what we think is really important in terms of AI and the impact it's having on the recruitment process. So welcome, Jeremy. Welcome, Seth. Please tell me a bit about yourself and how you work and how your experience is related to AI.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Hebblethwaite. I'm the CTO for Thakral One, so I consider the technology direction for the company. And together with my team, we conduct POCs and establish working practices with each solution we have in our portfolio, which includes AI. So I work closely with our clients as well to understand their needs, which also shapes our technology strategy along with that. So we've been looking into AI for a number of years now, as associated with our own work as well as with what our clients are looking for.
Thank you, Jeremy.
I'm Joseph Correa, you may call me Seth. So I'm the practice lead for data strategy and insights also in Thakral One. So my job actually is to help clients derive their strategies and roadmap with regards to adopting analytics, of course, AI included. So most of my job actually includes looking at the foundation of the organization, its maturity and its readiness to adopt analytics and at the same time to apply AI into their day-to-day operations.
Excellent. So thank you, Jeremy, and welcome you both to today's webinar. So I sort of want to start on with leading around sort of fundamentally understanding the changing landscape. And I'd like to ask sort of how has AI transformed the traditional skills landscape? And actually, what are the trends that organizations and individuals should be aware of?
Sure. I mean, as we know, technology advances are rapidly changing, especially in the last couple of years. And that's making a huge pressure on the demand for skills and they're disrupting both repetitive tasks and sophisticated knowledge-based work. And this is forcing workers to adapt a new job requirements. I think the average half-life of skills is probably now less than 5 years. And that means we're continuously learning on the job as well as practicing for the future. And here organizations are heavily investing in upskilling and they're dedicating possibly up to about 1.5% of their budgets to cope with these disruptions. However, the learning challenge is that there are millions of workers who may need to undergo complete reskilling, requiring a fundamental shift in their occupations. Established IT skills, such as, let's say, predictive analytics, NLP, deep learning, machine learning, these are in high demand, and the growing focus is now moving towards LLMs and Gen AI. This has led to a demand in new roles, such as prompt engineers, AI product managers, AI compliance specialists, as AI is on the rise. Additional emerging roles will be AI data annotators, legal professionals specializing in AI regulation, as well as ethics advisors. Finally, we probably need to know, well, where does that leave the recruiter? I think they need to adopt to a more systems thinking approach, understanding the interconnections of their recruiting, HR, and overall business functions, and how that's going to be applied to their tools. System thinking enables recruiters to make people-driven decisions based on actionable insights and solid technology. So as I see it, being data savvy allows recruiters to work closely with their analytics and technical teams to unlock the potential of their decisions and take more control of their future opportunities in the recruitment strategy.
How is AI transforming traditional processes? You've already spoken about sort of the systems thinking approach that recruiters need to take. Can you share user cases or examples where AI has significantly improved the efficiency of recruitment? Seth, over to you.
Yeah. So as jumping off from Jeremy's point, recruiters actually needs to evolve as well with regards to adopting AI in their processes. So aside from learning the technical skills and the hard skills to be able to use these new tools and technologies, they should still be able to actually learn new soft skills and increase their efficiency with regards to empathizing, as well as understanding the recruitment process, as well as those talents that are involved in the recruitment process. So those are the things that needs to be considered with regards to adopting AI. Now, with regards to the use cases, let's just go back in terms of what are the actual stages of the recruitment. So that starts with actually receiving the job requirement or the role requirement that is needed with the organization. Of course, prioritizing all these roles to be able to plan out how do you now pick up the talents. Of course, the next stage is to actually screen all the talents that's available in the market, do some matching, do the interviews and what have you, and finally the final selection. Now, AI can actually help in each of those stages. The first one that we can think of is helping, particularly Gen AI, being able to actually help you define properly the job description that is needed by the role or by the organization. So it's no longer just relying on the hiring manager in terms of what he or she wants. You can actually ask away through ChatGPT, for example, to be able to define what is the right job description for this specific role. So that's just one use case. Another use case that is applicable to the stage of the recruitment process is to actually even prioritize the talent that is needed by the organization. So applying predictive modeling and AI, you should be able to actually develop a model that gives you a score, that gives you a more specific or accurate meter to say that this job role or this role is actually more important than the other. And then another use case is actually matching of the job description to the recipe of the talent that you are looking into. And one more thing that AI can help with, which is actually quite amazing, is to really help you enhance the experience of recruitment. Would you know that Gen AI, for example, can help even automate the transcribing of interviews, giving you the exact text of the result of the interviews that you conducted to your talent, even doing some sentiment analysis in terms of how the responses were gathered by the talent. And at the same time, it can give you some wonderful insights in terms of how the interview did turn out. Now, as you may have observed, these use cases are actually applicable to each of the stages of the recruitment process. But I'm not saying that AI can autonomously replace the whole recruitment process per se. It still needs human intervention to be able to decide properly about the talent. And particularly on the final stages of choosing the talent, that's where AI can actually help you, but not really decide on you on that front.
That's really interesting in terms of those different ways of how you can use AI to be more efficient in terms of that end-to-end recruitment process, and having some real life examples is helpful. So I'd like to move on. So we've sort of discussed sort of the understanding the changing landscape, so the fundamentals. I want to move on to sort of talking about a new sort of topic, which is around the opportunities and the challenges and navigating those. So what would you say are sort of Seth's already given some examples of how we can improve the efficiency, but also sort of what are the advantages of adopting AI in recruitment? And really importantly, and something that I've been researching a lot, is how do we mitigate bias in the hiring process? Jeremy, I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Sure. I'll let Seth talk later about the biases, and I'll a little bit more about the advantages. I mean, to expand on some of his examples above and sort of reiterate them a little bit, the interview process itself can be massively enhanced. Questions can be tailored for the particular candidate for a job requirement to make sure that we're asking the right questions for this candidate rather than just being a standard set of questions. And that can be based off the candidate's CV, up front, or any other information we have about them relative to that. Obviously, we can get the transcripts from the interviews and we can analyze the sentiment that Seth mentioned. We can check out the communication and the language skills that the individual has and assess the candidate's responses to the questions. This will make the candidate evaluations probably not just more efficient, but possibly more objective, which obviously the biases that Seth will talk about later might sort of counter some of that, but it gives a bit of more of a uniform approach to what's being done. But also we can start using some more advantages in terms of the way in which it's been sourced. Sometimes we want to go after a particular candidate. So now we can potentially even tailor the the job description to a candidate based on their public internet profile and the CV, if we've already got that from them, to try and make the job look slightly more enticing for that particular individual to try and apply. We're looking at data-driven decision modeling afterwards, so we want to be able to help along there. And their corporate websites and stuff could be having Gen AI bots included. That'll help the candidates 24/7 to be able to ask about the job, find out what the policies and contract terms might be before we even have to go down into any of the interviewing stages if they're interested. They could be trying to assist in a more ideal role to be identified for them that we may have, rather than necessarily for the one that they've applied for. So all of this could be done hands-off, freeing up the recruiters to spend their time on more effective onboarding. Some examples that we've done at Tackle One, though, so we've already started in a particular way. We've got CV and JD parsing solutions, which will convert that into structured data for us. That'll help us do a lot more searches, more accurate searches across and matching people up again. We can also then generate standard template CVs from the candidate CVs that put into a nice structure for us, so when we send it to our customers, it's always in a standard format, and that's CV to JD, JD to CV matching as well. We've done a Gen AI proof of concept where we will try and evaluate the CV against the JD and give a marking for it. This is just experimental at the moment, but effectively we get a table of the job requirements as well as the experience needed to be able to do that in the daily job. And we try and get the Gen AI to say whether the requirements have been met and to what kind of depth the experience as a percentage the person has against the daily job that they're going to have. We don't see this as coming up with the answer, but really if you think about it like trying to find a needle in a haystack, we want to sort of look at trying to reduce the size of the haystack to make it easier for the recruiter to find the needle. Right now, it's just sort of in fledgling stage, and we don't use it unless we have hundreds of CVs coming in for a very short period of turnaround time, just trying to reduce that stack. But the more we work with our recruiters and our tech and analyst teams, the closer we'll get to be able to have something that might be beneficial. In terms of the other side of the advantage, though, and this is more from a corporate side of things, when a company is adopting new technology, typically early adopters are viewed as innovators in garnering positive perceptions, while followers may be seen as being more traditional or maybe not even exciting to work for. So the adoption of AI could be a double-edged sword, though, because if you're too aggressive on taking up new technologies, you might find you've lost the personal touch, especially in AI, and diminished human interaction, or even concerns over privacy. So finding that balance is the right way, but sitting back and waiting for everybody else to do it might not be such an advantage from a corporate point of view in terms of the external view that people can have. An example there of the balance you have to find is financial institutions, for example. They're not going to immediately jumping onto AI, mostly because a lot of the providers today are SaaS, and that means you're giving your data up to them to process and to give the responses back again. And in that kind of world, opening up data to third parties is very, very restricted. However, to their outsourced partners like ourselves who are doing recruitment, they would expect us to be jumping on this kind of technology and making sure that we can be as efficient as possible, and that they're getting the optimum acquisition out of their talent teams with the benefits. So ultimately, each company needs to decide what that balance is between embracing the new technology and ensuring that it enhances their operations without compromising any of the human elements.
As Jeremy mentioned, we actually need to strike a balance when we are starting to delve into AI. As mentioned, of course, adopting into new technologies will have clearly its advantages, and organization might be very thrilled and excited about adopting it fully. But of course, we need to be able to look at the other side of things. And one thing that we should be aware of and be wary of with regards to adopting AI is the introduction of biases. Actually, if you full throttle on AI, you might be facing a lot of ethical issues or AI issues, or sorry, not AI issues, but biases issues with regards to how you implement that in your organization. So a few things that we can recommend in terms of being able to avoid this is to actually encourage diversity in AI teams. Well, not just AI teams, but all teams in general. So what we think is that having insights from different groups, like different vendors, different roles, or even different industry experiences can give you a more holistic view in terms of how you actually tailor your own recruitment process, or rather how you choose the right people within your organization. And these different perspectives can help you actually decide. Of course, AI can help you streamline the process, make it faster, etc. But in terms of the final decision, a diversified team can actually give you a more holistic insight and at the same time a more generalistic view in terms of what are the type of people or roles that you really need on your organization. Another thing that we can recommend with regards to addressing possible biases is that to establish guidelines, principles, as well as regulations with regards to how you apply AI in your organization. Now, this goes back to actually of maybe the idea of having a council or a governance council that actually
Yeah.
checks and monitors how AI is being applied to organizations. What are the ethical principles that you need to apply to be able for you to say that, okay, I can implement AI in my organization with bias free and not crossing any ethical principles. So it's more of the ideation and thinking of what rules or regulations do we need to actually implement, of course, without impairing the benefits of AI, but at the same time making sure that this is introducing no biases and at the same time it's following ethical procedure principles. And another thing that we can also recommend is to actually establish AI audit. Now, one interesting thing about AI or analytics as a whole is that it's actually an iterative process. It requires a feedback loop in terms of you to be able to find the right model or the right AI model to implement in your organization. And what we say by establishing AI audits is actually similar to that. It needs to be in an iterative process of checking if there are biases already that's already been introduced in the model. Have there been any ethical principles that has been crossed because of different AI implementations? So this kind of checking needs to happen, and this feedback needs to get back to the AI development team, for example, so that it gets avoided through time. Because AI is in an evolving picture, and sometimes there will be biases that will be introduced without you noticing it. With an audit execution, that essentially prevents it.
That's great practical advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. So moving on from what are the emerging skills as AI adoption becomes widespread, and how are individuals and organizations adapting to the rapidly changing skill requirements driven by AI? I know Jeremy, I'd like you to speak to this. You did at the start talk around different skill sets coming in and, and the requirements for candidates, professionals to really upskill themselves. So I'd love to get more about your perspective on this.
Yeah, you're right. Earlier we touched on the changing roles of the recruiters. With Gen AI, instead of just, well, not really just, but instead of reading and rewriting CVs and creating summaries manually, which is quite a lot of the legwork of the recruiters before it then gets placed in front of the customer, all of that effort, or a lot of that effort has been removed. And they're maybe fine-tuning at that point based on whatever is the input that's needed. This frees them up to deliver more, obviously, because they got more time back, but hopefully to get more involved in the evolution of their role. Recruiters who become data savvy can start to become, I suppose, a bit more like part-time business analysts. They can work much closer with their analytics and tech teams, as I mentioned before, and to improve their process. This could be either by making better decision-making outcomes, or they could be identifying more effective recruiting channels, or even analyzing trends to tune the organization's strategy, because they're on the forefront. They're seeing all this coming in. They're seeing the candidates using Gen AI to make their own CVs up, and they've got to be cautious about what actually is the depth of this particular individual compared to what's been hyped up maybe by a Gen AI CV as well, which they're doing it for themselves. On the technology side, though, companies with an agile and DevOps mentality are going to be in a much better position to be able to integrate any of these AI tools into their organization. So we see a big demand in the automation space, using AI in the tech teams to be able to make sure that they can provide the rapid change and continuous improvement that's expected from there. So there's a need for domain organizational knowledge associated with AI to blend these things together. And we think that agile organizations are obviously in a better equipped to harness this. But at the same time, as companies are grappling to sort of reskilling, leaders, we think they have to take a little step back and think, what is the impact that this is going to have in terms of the effective strategies to consider their succession planning? Because if the kids underneath are coming up and having all of the tools to be able to get any information as quickly as possible, where does that leave the knowledge holders? And there's a sort of risk there that starts to be a debating factor, and that the guys with all the deep knowledge are starting to feel like they're going to get pushed out. And so what we need to try and balance there is that the new kid doesn't think that he or she is more valuable than the person who's got decades of scars of hard graft, at the same time that the person with all of that experience has seen that they also have a role to play. And that's possibly where we're starting to get the emergence of the new roles about the governance of using data AI, and also being able to, what Steph said before, about being able to assess whether the outcome that comes from it is actually closer to what the truth is, or has it been hallucinating or being off some bias.
What do you foresee as being the next big evolution? I know no one has a crystal ball, but what do you think is going to be the next big evolution in the intersection of AI, skills, and finally recruitment?
Yep. So let me just try to point out one thing. One thing that AI cannot do at the moment, at least at the moment, is to actually give you the decision if the talent is actually fit for the culture of the organization, or even fit to the preference of the hiring manager per se. So that actually amplifies that AI. Yes, it will streamline your process. It will make things easier, far easier, but it will not give you the decision. So it's really more of an augmentation and a super support with regards to the recruitment process. Now, in terms of what is the next step with regards to the adoption of AI. Now, at this point, AI, particularly generative AI, is actually still in its early stages. And that's actually an opportunity for the recruitment process to adopt to it much earlier, because it's actually ripe for the fruiting with regards to adopting generative AI, for example, since it's a lot of qualitative data that you need to process, and AI can actually really help you in terms of being beneficial to your process. But again, it is not meant to actually replace the whole process altogether. And that leads us to the maybe forecasted evolution that AI can introduce, is to actually help the recruitment team focus more on terms of their networking, as well as actually having influence in terms of the decision of what roles or up to who are the talents that needs to be involved in the organization. Because nowadays, for example, recruitment tend to be repetitive, especially if you have an influx of job requirements. And AI can actually help you streamline that process greatly, make it more insightful, and at the same time make it more faster. But it also gives you the room to be able to think more of what you can do from a recruitment process. Because at the end of the day, recruitment is an enabler for you to build your ideal organization. And of course, in terms of the next step for the recruitment team, is to be able to get to the right network in terms of having the right talent to your organization, and at the same time influence decisions with regards to what talents are really needed, who are needed, and if this person is actually going to be successful in your organization.
So I think that the perception of AI that will basically potentially displace the jobs often overshadows the history of similar statements made about new technology. According to research, about 85% of jobs that will emerge by 2030 haven't even been conceptualized yet. So I wouldn't see AI as a threat, but more as a valuable tool for businesses aiming to achieve more with less. AI can enhance employee productivity, as we mentioned. It can expedite time to market, elevate customer experience, and all repetitive tasks will diminish as new avenues for personal and professional development skills will surface. As we discussed before, recruiters, for instance, they'll witness a transformation in their roles. As candidates adapt new technologies, recruiters will have to anticipate and stay ahead of those advancements as well. That keeps it exciting for their roles to keep moving on. And as we pivot towards business development, similarly, AI is going to reshape software development. Developers already are starting to leverage AI for coding, debugging, software testing, and optimization. However, organizations must ensure that they've got a robust training plan and keep the high-level skills of the underlying knowledge of how this is happening, so that the reviewers and the testers are going to make sure that the software is doing what it's expected to be. So both roles are still being at play here between the knowledge holder and using the tools to be more efficient. Overall, we think maintaining an open-minded approach towards AI is absolutely crucial. There's no point resisting it because it's definitely going to come. We should see it as maybe an indispensable tool for tackling problems and fostering innovation, akin to how schools are trying to use any type of resource to help children learn. As the technology evolves, we'll see probably within about a half a generation, two groups forming. One will be the sort of the foundational knowledge holders and with experience, and the others will be focusing on using the tools. But we believe that over time, that gap will close and they'll realize that there is a requirement for both the fundamental and the AI skills, but depending on the role of the person, it'll depend on to what ratio that would need to be put in place. And that's going to lead to new governance roles, which are going to come up to make sure that the tools are doing the right thing, as the experienced people are saying, well, that's not quite right. And the feedback loops that Seth was talking about earlier will be put in place for the tech teams and the analysts to try and improve upon. So as a closing note, the notation of sort of autonomous recruitment may prove to be impractical and even ineffective. Rather, we see AI eliminating human intervention where it's repetitive and not necessarily to be done, and then use their knowledge and experience to guide that, where they can foster collaboration between the different disciplines, businesses, and industries, and hopefully solve their challenges faster.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. We've covered quite a lot in terms of the whole landscape of AI. I'm really sort of pleased that we were able to distill some practical examples, sort of the system thinking approach that recruiters need to be taking, the user case scenarios with regards to sort of using AI to benefit recruiters, from a job requirement, job description, the screening, the predictive modeling, and the matching too, and actually helping to transcribe interviews, which I think could really be an efficient tactic. I also think sort of honing in on sort of finding that balance. I think, Jeremy, what you say about sort of it's about still having that personal and human touch, and it's really about adoption of AI for efficiency and effectiveness, but not losing that personalization, and also sort of having that sort of ethical element and angle, and being aware of that, having that governance committee to make sure that their recruiters are not delivering or promoting in any shape of form any sort of levels of bias to, and also sort of finally sort of I really like that sort of that parallel thinking about sort of the new kids on the block, learning and versus those that have deep knowledge and who've been in the industry for many years, and again sort of seeing how they can complement one another, but also recognizing how those with deep knowledge have a role to play too. So thank you so much for your time, Jeremy and Seth. Thank you for all of the knowledge and the experience that you've brought to today's webinar. So thank you.